Hey, what's going on, Faithful? Wanted to get on here and talk about this first week of free agency and how that will impact the 49ers and their draft picks this upcoming April. And for sure, for sure the 49ers had some things in mind that they wanted to attack, some position groups. They took care of wide receiver, at least at a number one wide receiver, by signing Mike Evans, obviously, and that got the ball rolling in a big way. Then you get Osa Odigizua. Huge signing, I thought, to get that guy for a third-round pick from a team that's a historic rival of yours, and a guy that I think is a very useful player. He's a very good player, a very productive player. I believe he was top 5 in QB pressures last year, and I thought I had heard that this week. But regardless, he ranked really well in QB hits, in pressures the last few years. He's a guy that stays on the field. I believe he's only missed 1 or 2 games in the possible 87 starts that he's had. He's had, I think, 85 of 87 starts since his rookie season. So he is durable, which obviously is a big deal to us in the way that it usually works for us in every season, and health being such a big deal. But to get a guy at a defensive tackle position when you had 2 really green, really youthful dudes there last year in Alfred Collins and in CJ West. And now you have, like I said before, the grown up in the room. You have this vet that they can look to. And just like with Mike Evans, right, he's going to be the vet in the wide receiver room, total pro, clearly wanted to be here and had other options. I thought it was really interesting hearing his presser this week, him talking about, he could have gone to Buffalo, but he wanted to come here. He respects Kyle. He's known, Kyle in this offense. And he also mentioned George. He said George was a great selling point as well. So, having guys like George Kittle and future Hall of Famers like Fred Warner, Trent Williams, and what he believes is a potential MVP candidate again. Well, he was once, and he could be a potential MVP candidate and maybe a future MVP. Who knows? In Brock Purdy, and a quarterback that I guess he really respects and has respected since that really massive beatdown that the Bucs took in 2022 in Brock's first start. Obviously, that left an indelible mark in his mind, and it was something where he kept an eye on what he was doing and what the 49ers were doing, and clearly he has a ton of respect for Kyle and how Kyle will use him in this offense. So just cool to listen to him, cool to listen to how he feels, and it looks like he's going to be wearing number 14. I had to look that up today because I said, well, you can't wear the same number as the quarterback, so what number is he going to wear? And so I guess he's going to be number 14, which was coincidentally, it was actually Brock's number in preseason in Brock's rookie season before he took on 13, which I'm sure people are going to forget about in 10 years or 5 years, or maybe have already forgotten. But that's the kind of stuff that I, for whatever reason, remember. But 14, Y.A. Tittle, and I had to look up some other great players that wore that number because I just wanted to see, you always want to see kind of like, who can now bring some new glory to a certain number. At least I like that kind of stuff. I think it's kind of like this weird fan stuff that I personally enjoy. So, but that's what he's going to be doing, what he's going to be wearing. And so with Mike Evans kicking it off, just a really big signing. Then you get Osa. And you're going to have Osa in the middle, and you got Bosa from the outside. So that'll be a lot of fun for the announcers. But that'll be cool, just to see how that defensive line has come together. And again, they're not done. There's some whispers and rumors about potentially Joey Bosa joining this veteran, now somewhat veteran crew. It's like a mix of veterans and really young guys on that D line all of a sudden. Obviously, we got the news a couple of days ago that Bryce Huff was going to be retiring. And I know a lot of fans have kind of mixed feelings about those things, but I actually, I really respect the guy for being really honest about where he's at in his life and what he feels is important. And, it would have been cool to see how he was going to perform in his second season now under Raheem Morris, and a new scheme and new players, new pieces, second season, sophomore year for guys like Alfred Collins and CJ West. But nevertheless, he went out on his terms, and I always respect that. In fact, I was just watching a podcast with Fred Warner, and Fred had Patrick Willis on, man, that's a big part of what they were talking about was just, leaving on your terms when you still can. And his body did start to break down, but Pat talked about, I didn't want to go out and not be able to perform at all, on the field. It was one of those things where he'd watched guys that he looked up to in the twilight years, and they just were nowhere near who they used to be as players. I always talk about it's kind of like you're losing all your superpowers for these pro athletes that have been so good, especially a guy like him who's a Hall of Famer. And so I really respect that. I really, really do. I mean, I know some fans just want to see the guy keep going until, they rip the jersey off of you. But, I also, as a 90s kid, like I really respected when Barry Sanders just walked away. And I remember there was a big issue with that at the time. I thought that it was kind of a polarizing thing for a guy that was never polarizing, and it was very unassuming and classy. And I just thought it was really weird that that the media, and I felt like just in general, the fans at the time wanted him to keep playing because they just wanted him to break a bunch of records. And he's like, this is not why I'm playing. He didn't want to go to a new team. He didn't want to go in a new direction and whatnot. So not to go too far down, I probably already have, but just, talking about, what it means to keep playing and playing beyond where you should and your capabilities. And I think the 49ers now have a good mix of veterans and young guys. And I think that bodes well, right? It bodes well for the future where you have enough experience in the room to teach the young guys and bring them along. And then once these older guys really get to the point where they can't do what they've always done, you have this great nucleus of young guys that just learned a lot from these vets that are a lot of these guys are going to be Hall of Famers, and by the way, I do believe Trent Williams will get signed. I really do. I really feel like Trent Williams is in negotiations with the team. I feel like, and I've posted this before, but the reason why I think this thing is going to work out is because both sides want something that the other side has, and pretty much nobody else does. For Trent, he wants a chance to still win a Super Bowl, and not that he couldn't win one somewhere else, but I think that he wants to do it here. He wants to do it and get paid what he can get paid. And I think in the market, he maybe wouldn't get paid as much because of his age, but he means more to us than he does to anybody else out there, even though he's a legendary left tackle. And so I do think he's still going to be making a little more with us than he would anywhere else. And for the 49ers, we don't have any option coming out of the draft, even with a bunch of tackles and some that I really like in that day 2, day 3 range. You really don't have a lot of guys that can just step in and be, even an older version of Trent Williams, who's still a really good player, and that's the thing. Maybe in 2 or 3 seasons, those guys will be ready. But the 49ers aren't planning for 2 or 3 years. The 49ers need to win today. They need to win this year. They need to win next year. Like, that's the mentality for the 49ers. They're not a rebuilding franchise, right? There's that thing, you rebuild or you reload. I always think really good teams, they're always reloading. They're never rebuilding. So all that to say, I think that will get solved. So that will help to dictate again, because you're not going to just draft a left tackle to play them. So that will help out a lot. And then, the fact that Mike Evans, I think that you can get a receiver, you will get a receiver. But before I go further, I do want to say thank you so much, guys, for joining me. I am Guy Deal, and this is Niners on the Go.